Hello, and welcome to the Darby Creek Diaries. I'm Gail Thompson, and I'm back today with a spooky little candy corn card. It's Tim Holtz's and Stampers Anonymous's Boo Crazy, and it also pairs with Crazy Talk and Crazy Things. He has it sized so that everything kind of mixes and matches. Before we get started, I wanted to show you how to weed this. Some people don't weed it, but in this case, he gave us an extra little ghost and he doesn't fit unless you weed it and shift everything over. I do love red rubber stamps. They stamp the best. Very few people make them. So I'm sorting everything out, moving everything around so that I can get my little baby ghostie to fit. And then we will get started. Now, don't be afraid to go ahead and pre order Boo Crazy. It has been sold out at several places. I'll have links below, but you can pre order it. It's just pretty popular. So first we're going to go ahead and work on the background. And this is a Tim Holtz positioner. You can't get it anymore, but I felt I should use his positioner. And it has a rubber side, and that was what I was pointing out. You would flip the top if you were going to use a polymer stamp because the rubber stamps are a little thicker. So I'm positioning my spider. It doesn't really matter where the web is, but I am going to heat emboss, so I'm using my powder tool from Rabbit Hole Designs and getting that extra static off of there. And I'm going to use VersaFine Clair black pigment ink. I really like that. There are a lot of good pigment inks. I just happen to go back to this one quite a bit. And then don't press too hard or your lines will get all smudgy. Just a light pressure, but leave the ink on there for just a second and pull it up. And now we're going to use clear embossing powder. I have black embossing powder, and I promise you, it is a staticky mess. I maybe the clear is and you just don't see it, but I prefer to use black ink and clear embossing powder. I have all kinds of horror stories about the black. And I always put the lid on right away because I've also dumped a lot of embossing powder. Get your heat tool nice and hot before you take it to the paper, and you'll see it cooking when it gets to being the real dark, and you will notice there'll be a gloss there instead of just a powdery little residue. I'm going to try these masking strips from Gina K. These are 1/4 inch masking strips. And I thought, well, that'll just give me a little border, and it's a border that is not another piece of paper. So it kind of helps with the bulk, although at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because I put an action wobble on our little candy cone ghostie. But, at least it's one layer less, and it gives kind of a cool effect. I'm just lining it up with the edge of the paper. Now, the masking magic isn't terribly sticky, so it'll never hurt your project, but it also doesn't really stick to the table very well. For the first thing you want to do is when you are stamping and you're masking is you want to put what you want in front down first. And I had ink on this, so that's why I put the plastic underneath. That way I could get ink on the, some packaging and not on my paper. And just going to hold it down there for a second. So we've got our hat ready to go, and I cut out a little hat mask from Masking Magic. And it doesn't even have to look good. I had practiced, so that's why you see the ghost head, but you don't have to cut the whole thing out, just the edge that you are trying to protect. And now I practice with the ghost, so I want to make sure that I don't get ink on that paper. So back with the packaging. And then I realized I really didn't like how I had it lined up before. So excuse my head, it is in the way, but you don't want the head to be outside of the hat. That would be kind of weird, even for a Ghostie Witch. So back to the VersaFine, and we're putting our Ghostie on. This is a cute Ghostie. I don't like frightening things. I don't like scary movies, but this ghost is cute. I can now look. Isn't that wonderful? The hat just looks like we planned it, which we did. The next thing I want to do is put his little broom in his ghosty hands, which means he doesn't have ghosty hands. So I want to mask off a little bit of that broom, and so it looks like it's peeking through. It's just kind of going right through him because he's just kind of air anyway. The easiest way is just to put the ghost mask on him, and we're going to stamp up the broom. Masking always kind of scared me, but it is magical, and if you just break it down into simple parts, it's not bad. And just keep in mind that whatever you want in the front needs to go down first. So we got the back part of the broom, and I'm just going to mask off a little space there. And we left the broom up already in place. That way we know the stick will match up exactly. Just want to be careful not to get any ink on the other side of the mask. Just tap it down gently because we don't want to smush the broomstick. And there we go. It looks like it's just poked right through. So see, that wasn't so bad. Now we're going to make the candy corn part of the ghost. We're just, I thought that would be cute. And we're just going to do a little bit of masking again, only just using a Post-it note. And I had to check. I always have to check which order the stripes go on candy corn. I am not a young person, and yet I still have to look. It's just one of those things. Do you like candy corn? I don't particularly like candy corn, but when it's mixed with some peanuts, it does. There's this mix, and it does sort of taste like what is there's a candy bar that it tastes. I can't remember the name of it, but anyway, yeah, I'm not real into candy corn, but I'm into pretty much every other kind of candy. Now I'm masking off the broomstick itself because I'm going to color that a brown here later with some crayons. And then I remember, whoops, I better mask the top part of this because there are 3 parts. Now this Post-it note, these are sticky the whole backside. I couldn't find any that were just sticky on the top. That would be better. It would be a lot easier to manipulate them. So now we're coming in with our orange. And later on, I decide that this isn't a very big stripe, so I expand upon it a little bit. I hope everything is going well with you and that you have a moment to craft and relax out of a stressful day. I know I don't get much of a chance to. I'm still working on that deck and helping my son. He moved back and he also broke his shoulder, so it's been kind of hard for him to move. See, I didn't like how small that was, so I am going to make it just a hair bigger. Fortunately, distress oxides are pretty forgiving, so it won't be terribly hard to kind of make that line disappear. But I did want to make sure I masked everything, even though I don't know that it'll really matter. I'm cutting this out. The dies aren't available yet, but they will be at Simon Says Stamp. But so I'm just going to fussy cut it's not that big of a deal to fussy cut this ghost. The broom, not so much fun, but it is what it is. Uh, like I said before, some of these may not be available, but they could be available for pre-order. I have Simon and scrapbook.com for sure linked. So you can get them there. I really appreciate it if you use my links. It helps support my channel. No additional cost to you. I wish I would have left the ghost on the platform because I would have gone back and re-stamped the black on top of it. but I didn't think of that. So it is what it is. I'm not going to show you a bunch of coloring because I don't feel I'm great at it and it takes me a really long time. But I am using distress crayons and I'm going to add a little bit of water here. But I want the hat to look kind of distressed. I didn't want it to be perfectly flat black. So I have a water pen here and I'm smoothing it out just a little bit. And I started with gray and then I went to black. I didn't want to cover up the black lines, but it didn't appear to do that. So I'm just sort of lightly adding water. This is not watercolor paper, so I don't want to add a bunch of water because I don't want the paper to start pilling up. And then I kind of skipped through the magic of television. I did the hat, the buckle and everything, and I finished up the broom. Like I said, nothing special coloring wise. And then I'm adding a little bit of water to smooth it out just a little bit, but not a lot. Then I'm taking a black gel pen and filling in his eyes just so they have a little bit of gloss and they stand out a little bit from the rest. Now this gel, it's hard to tell, but it's shiny and it does do a little bit of a raised impression. And my gel pens just always seem to dry out, so I'm putting that little tip that you pull off back on after use to see if that helps. Now we're going to go to our background and I really love doing these backgrounds because they're just you just do whatever. I'm using twisted citron to start it out because I wanted a little bit of a glow. And then I'm going to start making my night sky with my purples and I'll have to link that below because I don't remember which purple it was. And there's no rhyme or reason to this. I'm just trying to make sure that I cover that little area where I have the masking so that there's a nice crisp line. And I'm going now to my blue, I believe. Yes, going to the blue. And I don't have brushes for every color, but I do have one I kind of use for every color family. Some of them are color coordinated and some are not. Some are just black ones that I happen to just know what color they are. So I'm taking the blue around and we're going to gradually make this a night sky. These are all distress oxides, so they have a little bit of more of a matte look. I'm coming in with the black soot and I'm trying to decide just how dark I want it to be. And you always want to start off with a lighter hand and just keep adding. It kind of helps you not have those swooshy marks that sometimes happens, especially with the regular distress inks. So I'm finishing up the black there and trying to figure out, well, which way am I going to put my ghostie? So, because you don't really have to do a whole bunch behind him. I'm coming back with a little bit of blue because I thought the black was just a little blacker than I wanted. Now I'm going to take my distress sprayer and I'm not really good at angling this stuff. So I'm just going to spritz a little bit into my hand and flick it down on the paper. Now this is watercolor paper, so it could take, a little more water than the regular paper. So I'm flicking that and then I'm going to get a paper towel and after you let it set for just a few seconds and dab it up. And I see when I'm done there, I don't really like that big splop at the bottom. No problem. Just take your colors and kind of go over it and no one will know that that was unintentional. Now I'm getting out my mica sprays, which I absolutely love. This is a Halloween color, and it'll be listed below as well. Just testing it off, and I just made a few spritzes because it'll put a little bit of sparkle, but not too much. There's our background after I peeled off the masking. It's just kind of a different look. And now we're going to cut out the ghostie. I'm not going to show you the whole thing because it's boring, but do know that you always want to move the paper and not the scissors. I have cutter bee scissors, and frankly, I think I like them better, even though they're old and maybe not as sharp. But I'm used to them, They're a little less bulky, but these work fine as well. Any scissors you have will work great as well. I'm not a you want to snip into the corners. That's the easiest way to not bend this broom that has a really tiny handle. Now, something very important that just finishes off, I think, a die cut is to, especially if you're using black ink to stamp with, is to just go around the sides and add black to it so you don't have that white halo looking thing around it. I always kind of try to color from the back because if you make a slip, you'll mess up the front. I don't always go by that, but I try to. So I'm placing everything on the card to see just exactly where I want it. I am making a card that's slightly bigger than 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 by making it 4 1/2 and 5 3/4. That way I can add a little frame to it. I'm going to make a little black frame. So I'm also having to make my card base a little different. We need to have a piece that is 5 1/2 by 4 3/4 for the front, and then one that is a 1/4 inch longer for the back so that we can assemble the card because you can't do it all on one 8 1/2 by 11 sheet of paper. So I'm going to score this at 1/4 of an inch. And this is not your mama's cardstock, and it is super, super thick. So it is a little hard to score, but if you're careful, you'll be good. And I'm using 1/4 inch score tape. And I'm going to show you right here how we do it. We're just going to fold that top over and we will make our card base. And I had a little bit, it seemed like it was a little bit narrower than the 1/4 inch. So I wound up here in a minute fixing that. And you just chop off whatever's on the edge because it's really hard to tear something like that exactly. And I don't like getting goo all over my scissors. The cutter bee ones aren't Teflon. So I'm going to pull up the tape here in a second after I fold this over. I just want to check and make sure everything fits well and that the bottoms meet correctly. So I stand it up, then I pull the release paper, then I dry it again. You always want to double check, double check, double check. And so I see that there's just a little tiny bit of maybe tape sticking out, but there's our card. So I just took a little bit of my powder tool and wiped it over the score tape. Any of that sticking out, you'll never see it. Now you could put another card back over this, but I'm not going to. Then I have my pitch black frame. I cut out some. I cut out a die cut in the middle because no sense in wasting this paper. I treat that cardstock like gold. I love it. It is thick and it is dark, dark black. And I'm trying to salvage some glue that was stuck in a lid. I don't know why. And I'm trying out now for the first time my glue press. And I really like it. It's one of those things that you don't know you need until you get it. You don't know you want it until you get it. But a lot of my friends that have recommended it. So I went ahead and got it. And they're a little hard to get, but I think they're coming back in stock. Now I'm just gluing the rest of the background. It does a super thin line, but there's also another nozzle that will do a thicker line, but I just didn't change them back and forth. I just keep it on the thin. And then I'm eyeballing this as usual and centering it. And there is our beautiful ghosty background. I have always wanted one of those spider web stamps. I have a stencil, but it does the reverse, so that doesn't work as well. And I decided we needed something going on next to the ghost, so I'm just going to put a little bat there, and I'm going to add the sentiment that I embossed in white offline or off camera, and gluing everything down. Just looking for the perfect place to put my bat. I don't want to cover up too much of this background because I really like it. I decided the ghost needed to do something. So we have a little action wobbler. Actually, it's the large size of the action wobbler. And I'm sticking that on the back, and that way he will be able to wobble and dance. But it does collapse so that you can put it in an envelope, and it doesn't add a whole lot of bulk to your card, but it adds a lot of fun. And I'm trying to decide exactly where to put it to not mess up my background. Putting it down, and there you go, Mr. Ghostie. So here is our card. I just love him. I hope that you enjoyed this and that you will try it. Come back and see me. Follow me on all the social media. There are tons and tons of videos, and I will link to some Tim Holtz things if you like that. Come back and have a great day. Bye bye.